Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
Back again. It is the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite Podcasting Network, episode 110. I am your humble servant, Trek Lord of West Michigan, Charlie Carden, commanding officer of Region 13 and the USS Grand Petoskey in Starfleet International. I am joined by my trusty cohort, my chief engineer, game master of the Grand Petoskey. That would be Mr. Peter Stein. Peter, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you today?
Doing all right.
All right, good. Well, we've got some actual news to talk about, which is cool because New York Comic Con is going on as we're recording this, or wrapping up today, rather. We're recording on a Sunday. You're potentially listening on a Monday, so this may or may not be news you've heard, but you're going to hear it from us. But first and foremost, as always, we'd like to pay homage to the great folks over on our Patreon, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite, people who do contribute at various levels to making it possible to doing bonus recordings, bonus materials like the right after Peter and I record this, we're going to do our second segment talking about Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica, one of my favorite shows in the Facts of Geek Life Patreon segments, and many of others that are done kind of by our stars of the Secret Friends Unite galaxy. So anyway, there are a couple of different levels to engage with. Please visit the website. You get a free 1-week trial of any of those audio tiers so you can check us out. And if you like what you hear, definitely come back for more. On the Friends with Benefits level, Corey in HD, John Sadorf, the great Phoenix Sisters cosplay, and Brendan Myers. BFF level has the awesome Nias family, Sean, Stella, and Henry, and Andy Milliken. We are very grateful for your support. Again, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. Try us out for a week, and if you like it, feel free to stick around. So cool. All right, let's jump in. We're usually a two-prong show, two-segment show, but to this week we're 2.5 because we've got some news, but we're also going to take it home with the very short treks as well. So first and foremost, the biggest headline with Star Trek in the last couple of weeks since we've been coming at you is that Star Trek Prodigy has found a home in finally in to me the most unlikely of places / the most likely of places. It's going to be over on Netflix, actually starting in 2024, where they're going to the first season, which was released over the last year, will be available on Netflix before the end of 2023, and season 2, which was never released by Paramount Plus, will be there in 2024. And that will be the next original content that we have to talk about on the show because, boy, once we're done with talking about Star Trek Lower Decks, which we will be in this episode, and then also going through the next couple of episodes, we're out of stuff. So, Peter, we're going to have to come up with some content for the front end of the show. So I've got some ideas. We'll certainly be brainstorming on it, because the second part of the show, we talk about classic content. So we got to get something to figure out. So anyway, it has been about 4 months, obviously, since Paramount Plus, in a delightful cost-cutting measure in the chaotic world of streaming, that Star Trek Prodigy was removed, still available for purchase digitally, which I went out and did. And it was a rare occurrence where I kind of got more than I thought I paid for. I went in and on Fandango Voodoo, I purchased the first half of the season, which was available at that time. And then at a later time when I went back, and I have not rewatched it, I'll be honest, when I went back to check it out again, the back half was there. And I paid $20 for it. So essentially, $2 an episode instead of $4 an episode. So it was pretty. My math might have been bad on that. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. But this is cool. So Peter, we talked. You and I and Kay and probably some other people in the network talked about Prodigy when it was on. What's your thoughts about it being on Netflix?
I was a little surprised that it was Netflix picking it up.
Yeah,
simply because of the relationship between Paramount CBS at the time, and
Right.
Netflix, how there's been a lot of talk of CBS kind of, tossing the burden of cost of stuff over to Netflix for Discovery seasons 1 and 2, and they weren't happy about that.
Yeah. True.
So I was a little surprised, but at the same time, this is a way for Netflix to be like, "Hey, now we got your stuff."
Yeah, right.
So there's something there, but I'm also happy that Netflix has it because it's somewhere we can see it, and Netflix is one of those platforms that is pretty accessible by almost anyone. So you'll at least have, and doesn't. I don't know. It's good that it's there. That's really what it boils down to.
That's true, and I'm kind of the same mind about it. It's great that it's not only somewhere, but I think it's helpful to the franchise. It's helpful and hurtful to the franchise as a whole to have it on Netflix, because on the upside, Netflix is the original streamer. I believe, or at least it feels like, if it's not, it feels like it is, but it's the one that people are just like, man, everybody, if you don't have it, you have access to it. And certainly with password restrictions, more people are paying for it. Probably in the past it had been. And now this will be content that's kind of pushed out there for more people to see. So more eyes are going to land on it, potentially than landed on it before, which is good for the franchise. But the bottom side of it is that this should have never happened in the first place. You're taking a chunk out of Star Trek. Paramount, Viacom taking a chunk out of their biggest cash cow has been mystifying to me. It's been mystifying, to fans over the last 4 months. With all of this,
doesn't make sense.
All of the social media campaigning, and again in this source article that we have, the Skywriter or the banner that flew over the Netflix office in LA, a couple of months ago, hashtag save Star Trek Prodigy. It's great to see that there's love out there. It's great to see that we're going to see a continuation of that story, whether that means that the story will continue to grow while Netflix owns it, if they're going to fund another season. Netflix is great at canceling stuff. That also makes me, somewhat dubious what the future might mean. But for today, for now, we can celebrate this victory.
Right, at least we're gonna at least get the season 2 that they finished.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
So turn into like the Lost missions of Clone Wars, where you get it eventually.
Yeah, that's and Netflix was involved with that. So yeah, a great example. But that's something cool that we will be able to bring to you. Yeah, when we wrap up talking about Star Trek Prodigy, there's going to end up having be some changes here in our program that we're going to have to find something else to chat about in segment 1. But we will be bringing you something because that's
something.
That is just what we do. Okay, moving on. Story number 2. As I had mentioned, New York Comic Con has concluded by the time you are listening to this. It was this weekend, and it was the 12th through the 15th of October, and there was some Star Trek content there, despite the fact that actors are obviously still honoring the SAG-AFTRA strike, and they were obviously, much like with Star Trek Las Vegas, not talking about Star Trek directly, but producer types like Alex Kurtzman did take the stage at the Star Trek Universe panel and did talk about emerging projects such as Michelle Yeoh and her Section 31 project, which is still alive. It was announced back in April. And obviously it's not something that Michelle Yeoh is able to talk about. But he did mention that writers are engaged. They're back in their writing rooms, and Section 31 television film is continuing to be worked on, which is awesome. That is, to me, one of the brighter spots of the first part of that first season of Prodigy, which I was not crazy about myself personally, was Michelle Yeoh's portrayal of Mirror Giorgio and regular Giorgio, and then the vast contradictions in Section 31 for what we had experienced it as it has kind of evolved backwards from its origins in DS9 to Enterprise to now. Peter, you and I are, and again, we have the benefit of not having big Discovery fans in the room here, but how are you feeling about this Section 31 project?
I've never been a big proponent of it when I first heard about it. I like Section 31 staying in the shadows and being used as a foil rather than being front and center. Yeah, which
is what Discovery turned it into.
Which is like, oh, we're going to do a movie about Section 31. I don't want to have a movie about Section 31. I just want them to show up, be irritating, and leave.
Right.
I don't want them to be like,
it's like Q or like the Book of Boba Fett. You love
or like that movie about Jabba the Hutt. Do I really want to see that? No, I really don't. Could it be interesting? Sure, but we don't need it.
If you didn't catch our last episode of Holocron Chronicles, which Mark Carabin and I produce on this network, Peter was our co-host last week, where we did talk about a deleted Guillermo del Toro picture prospect of a Star Wars film starring Jabba the Hutt, which none of us were particularly excited about. But yeah, so, this may come and go. But be thankful at least that it's a television movie project so if it's terrible, it's that, but if it's great, it's something you can enjoy. But regardless, it's something we can talk about on the show. It gives us something to commentate on. So more exciting news. One of my favorite people in Star Trek, in the modern era, is Tawny Newsome. I've met her a couple of different times and conversed with her both on the cruise and at Star Trek Las Vegas, and she is just friggin' delightful person. Awesome stand-up comedian, standout star of Star Trek Lower Decks. But she is part of the writer's room for the Star Trek Starfleet Academy show, which previously, in hearing about it, and this gives a little bit more confirmation or at least conversation around the fact that it will be set, post Star Trek Discovery, at least the current time frame, because when we learned about it several months ago when it broke, it was being told that it's set after the Academy had been in idle for over a century, which tied in with the events of seasons 3 and 4 of Star Trek Discovery. But thinking about Tawny being a part of it, and this, this writer's room starting to hum, it gives me a whole lot more excitement about it, knowing that she's part, just because I love what she does so much. So I don't know, your thoughts about post Discovery Academy?
I'm excited that Tawny's writing for it.
I'm in the same spot.
Outside of that, I don't know. I don't know what to think.
I don't know. I'm overall, and again, we don't have we don't have Missy, we don't have Kay here to kind of be the people who really love and advocate Discovery to talk about it. I'm more fond of Discovery since it took that hop forward, and it's in a different. It takes place in a different time frame. It's the ultimate, future of Star Trek being in the 32nd century. But overall, it's not my favorite Star Trek. So I don't. But one of my very favorite Star Treks is Lower Decks, and Tawny's a huge part of that. She's a wonderful creative, and I'm just very excited to kind of see what she does with anything. So I'm totally down. I just
really hope that they don't lean into the teenage angst that a lot of people do when they do stuff in that particular age bracket.
Right, that it becomes very CWE. Yeah, no, I totally
I don't want that. It's like, Starfleet's a little bit better than that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of my worry outside of other things.
I hear you. A couple of quick bits. The shooting for the third season of Strange New Worlds is continuing to shift, obviously, because of the strike. Final season of Discovery still promised in 2024. There was an early stream of thought that it would grab the February timeframe that was occupied by Picard earlier this year, but I don't know that this article is necessarily pinning this down. It does say early next year, so I'm going
still be
to
March like it was.
Yeah. So I'm going to be a pin of it. Kurtzman's quote does say, very satisfying ending, and that Sonequa Martin Green gave the performance of her life. The thing that I think is that, as much as I, love and respect and revere Doug Jones, just because I have met him personally several times, he's a close friend of Missy's, Sonequa Martin Green's acting and overall presence on Star Trek Discovery has been one of my favorite things in the modern Star Trek era. I just find her to be a fantastic performer, and I've loved her stuff going back to The Walking Dead. She was a great character on that show as well. So,
first time I saw her was Once Upon a Time.
Oh, okay, something that I've never even watched. So how was she in that show?
She was in like 3 episodes. She did a really good job.
Yeah, I mean, she's tremendous. I love her. The other part of New York Comic Con was this thing with rapper musician Kid Cudi. It's totally off my radar. I know that they're just reaching to find anything because actors aren't available to help promote, but I don't even really know what it was. They slapped a rapper in a Star Trek uniform. That's all I got from it. I'm sorry.
They did that, and then they stuck him in Fortnite. Outside of that, I have no idea what's going on.
I got you. But you know what?
I don't care about either of those things. So
I hear you. You know, and hopefully he's getting a great paycheck out of it. The IDW Star Trek comics, I actually nixed my subscription to the ongoing titles because they were just piling up in my digital shame pile. So the only ones that I'm reading now is there's a Strange New Worlds limited series, and then there's a Star Trek Picard Starfleet Academy miniseries that I'm reading, because miniseries is about, with all of the reading and content creation we do for this network and this Patreon, I don't have time for a lot of ongoing series. So those may sit there. I may come back and check back in. Some of them were really quite good, you know. And Peter, I've shared images with you, like, well, there's a Benjamin Sisko comes back, and there's a post Star Trek Nemesis timeline where, you know, there's the Klingon gods and the prophets, and they're having a god war and a lot of stuff going on, you know, trying to tell stories. But for the most
soon, that's going to be Alexander and Jake going some alternate dimension hopping with, I think, Q's son. And
yes, I saw something about that. Yeah, it's the Star Trek sons. So it'll be Alexander, Jake, Nog, and Q2 or
Baby Q. I don't know what they call him.
Q's actual son, Kiernan, who I heard they did an interview with him on one of the Star Trek podcasts that I listened to, and he has grown, and he is he's a political analyst or something. Like he's left the world of acting altogether. Not that he was necessarily ever in it. So hey, good for him for going on to break out of the mold. So okay. Very quickly, because these shorts were very short, and they were even shorter than the regular shorts, were the last two segments of the very short treks, which aired. I watched them on YouTube. I would assume that would be the easiest place to find them, but available from the, I believe, StarTrek.com website. We have Holograms All the Way Down and Walk, Don't Run. Two very silly segments. The Holograms All the Way Down pretty much covered a quickie holodeck program that was a window within a window within a window. So you had, you know, Neelix watching Trip, watching. Help me out here.
Riker watching the original series. It was just they kept
stacking, and at the end of it, they all become a big anthropomorphic blob of wondering. So again, very silly and made zero sense. And again, as we quoted last time, this series itself was portrayed as being anything but canon. I would totally agree. That's exactly what it is. And the last segment was Tendi in a holodeck program with the animated series Scotty and Maress and Eric's. So the two original characters that we saw from Star Trek, the original series, were the two of them. And she was doing a holodeck program where she was paying homage to their series, and they were taking great umbrage to everything that she said. But eventually Riker and Sulu walk in, and it's just really weird to hear George Takei do Sulu now, because he's so old and he has that old man voice that I struggle with it, where Jonathan Frakes, being aged, obviously sounds older than he was, but I think really just still does sound like Riker. And obviously the Scotty portrayed there was not really Scotty, and probably the same with the other two characters. But they end up breaking out into a weird little song that I enjoyed very much. I thought it was really silly and fun. You know, putting love on your duty roster. I've forgotten the lyrics already. I found it more enjoyable than the Strange New Worlds musical. I'll put it to you that way, because the musical, we talked about this. And again, feel free to @ me on X at the C3 or at Secret Friends U or anywhere else on our socials. But both on Secret Friends Unite and then also on this show, when Peter and I were talking, I enjoyed the Strange New Worlds musical as a Star Trek concept, but I thought the songs were lacking.
We talked about it offline because I wasn't on for that episode.
Oh, God, it must have been Jen. It was Jen and myself and Missy, and I was the only one who was like, great Star Trek concept.
If you had me there, I would have been like Johnny Raincloud.
And I found this one, I guess, while I took the Strange New Worlds one as being as serious as a musical gets, this was completely satirical, and I enjoyed. And the people were dancing, and it was just a straight up homage, World of Love for for TAS, which TAS is, we've talked about on the show a very long time ago with even other co-hosts, but TAS, a very mixed bag, did give us a couple of gems. But again, it's a capsule in time, now 50 years old, which kept Star Trek alive, complementary with the fact that it was growing in popularity in syndication in the 1970s, and that's what led to its its film revival, which led to its television revival, and that's where we are now. So I thought this was cute, and again, you're bringing in elements of Lower Decks and Tendi, who is just an absolutely delightful character. So I thought these were the two best of the short treks, in my opinion.
These were the best ones out of all of them.
That was good. Yeah,
I found both of them pretty amusing.
Yeah.
So
good. Yeah, finishing strong without a doubt. Okay, well, let's jump on into talking about Lower Decks. And that was an unusually long news segment. We don't have a 20-minute news segment, but we had a lot of stuff going on. But what's nice talking about these half-hour episodes is that we don't we don't dig as deep as we do with a dramatic 1-hour episode, because there's not as much to talk about. But Peter, why don't you go ahead and jump in with episode 5 of the season?
All right, Lower Decks, Season 4, Episode 5, Empathological Fallacies. The hedonistic outlook of a Betazoid delegation infects the crew. Or does it?
Oh, my goodness. First of all, kicking it right off, I do love that April and I watched both of these this morning. And April, when I know she likes something, she's like, we ought to do a cosplay of that. 3 Betazoids in kind of cocktail dresses with those big, long... Bourbon Street.
I don't know what those are called, but yeah,
I'm struggling because I've been. You see those on Bourbon Street, New Orleans, and I've not been in New Orleans since pre-Katrina. So we're talking. I went twice. I went for spring break in '98, and then I went work related in the year 2000. And it's a big plastic party chugger or whatever.
The state fairs in Minnesota or other places.
And it's a Slurpee or whatever. But these, if they're filled with gut bombs or super grenades or whatever, something that's like more alcohol than the human being should have. But you have, this was an absolutely spectacular take on Betazoids in general. And then I loved, so you got the 3 Betazoid ambassadors basically on board. They're 3 essentially middle-aged women, or at least that was the vibe I got. You could clearly tell they're up to nothing but trouble. They're flirting with the captain. They end up in sickbay getting checked out, and that's when you learn that there's a relationship with the Cation race and the Betazoid race that Cations used to hunt and eat them for sport. Only a couple of centuries ago.
That was a little weird, but
it was weird, but I enjoyed it. So, all right, so that's the setup. So what's going on from there?
So there's everyone's emotions just start getting all out of whack.
Right.
And you have everyone starts either fighting each other or making out or doing all these weird things, and it's hilarious. The crew just quickly starts losing its mind.
Right.
Yeah. But in the B-roll, you have Boimler, who has been basically kidnapped by security.
Yeah. The drum circle.
Where they're doing drums, they're doing slam poetry, they're doing there's just all this obnoxious stuff, and it's just hilarious because Boimler's like, I don't know what's going on. What? Why am I here? Eventually, you find out why, and it's actually another classic. Shax is
right.
Papa Shax. So it's
Papa Shax's baby bear.
Yeah.
So these Betazoids they're bad. Their crazy wildness has kind of taken over the ship, and they've got a mission. They've got a mission. They're hijacking the ship, and why they're headed towards the neutral zone. What are they trying to do? It was crazy.
I don't exactly remember. I didn't rewatch this morning, so I don't remember the exact detail. But they were trying to do something, and they thought that the Cerritos crew and the Federation were up to no good about something or other, and so they're going to go take it to the Romulans. Okay,
right?
Why?
I know. That seemed a little random.
They're trying to take him back to Beta Z, and the fastest way was cutting across the Romulan neutral zone, which led to one of my favorite bits of like, oh, they didn't cross. We'll go lurk somewhere else.
It's funny because A, that's a chuckle, but B, and I said this when we were watching it, I'm like, the purpose of the neutral zone is that nobody's supposed to be in the neutral zone. So if they would have crossed over the neutral zone and slammed into a Romulan ship, neither one of them were supposed to be there. But anyway, it's one of those cases it's one of those cases that Lower Deck still gets it great, even if it doesn't necessarily make sense. But yeah, it's like, oh, let's go over to Sector 12. We'll lurk over there.
Yeah, it's just hilarious. But then you have like eventually Shax and security is able to take out the Betazoids. But in the meantime, we find out that the emotional stuff is not because of the Betazoids, which through the whole episode I was like, this feels a lot like Deep Space Nine,
right?
But it wasn't. You find out that it's T'Lyn.
Oh, right,
projecting her telepathic distress to the entire crew, which was fun.
Yeah,
that,
she's getting some nice character development. That's a character I really enjoying.
I liked when she first appeared in that one episode in the last season, and then she's like, at this point, she's kind of my favorite character. Like, I still love everybody else, but T'Lyn is just like, I don't know. She's my favorite at this point.
Oh my goodness. No, it's good stuff. Yeah. And I like it's kind of funny because she's a provisional officer. So she has that little lodgings little lodgings. What's the word I'm looking for? The little bar. Yeah. Thank you. The little bar on her neck that all the Maquis officers and crew had on Voyager. So I kind of like the thought that if someone is part of another military within the Federation that's non-Starfleet, that if they get the boot or they can jump over and be like a substitute teacher visiting kind of officer. I think that's kind of cool.
Basically. Gotcha. Office exchange program.
Gotcha. And the name of the episode is now "We Will Go Lurk Over There."
Yes.
Until we find something
line
better.
Just made me lose it. It was
Oh my gosh. Oh, all right. So So moving on. Any other thoughts before we move on to episode 6?
Not really. Other than I just really appreciate how they've been continuing this like Papa Bear thing with Shax. It's just great.
Good stuff. I love it. That sound you're hearing in the background, one of Peter's siblings is playing with a chainsaw outside, and let's hope that he's not doing anything nefarious. And if he is,
don't worry, Friday the 13th was a couple days ago.
Exactly. The blood fever is gone. So anyway, episode 6 is Parth Ferengi's Heart Place. Aww. The Cerritos visits the Ferengi homeworld with the prospect of the Ferengi joining the Federation. This is actually a very monumental episode, and we'll tell you why. So, we're going back to Ferenginar, and our gang...
We actually get to see outside for the first
time.
Exactly.
Gleaming rain. We actually get to all of our crew pull super fun duty. They're getting this kind of diplomatic immunity tour guide deal where they have to go down, and because Ferenginar is in final negotiations to join the Federation, they need boots on the ground to get more acclimated with a lot of cultural stuff. So we get just a lot of fun little Easter eggs with the whole gang beaming down, but there's a nice little wrinkle, and of course Ransom sets it all up, that because there's no married couple on the Cerritos who can take in married couple stuff on Ferenginar, that Tendi and Rutherford have to pose as a married couple, and that ends up being the crux of what's the most fun about the episode, because while these two clearly have great chemistry, the chemistry is not romantic. And so when they try to pretend that they're a married couple, they're like, oh, they're doing fake married couple people talk. Mariner sneaks in one of my favorite lines of the episode. Oh, Ferenginar, it's what Earth would look like if God was stupid. Oh God, if God was stupid. I don't want to make that the title. I don't want to get in trouble for that. But I thought that was a great line. But yeah, they have to beam down and go through what was Boimler's time when they beamed down?
Boimler was going to go do a whole bunch of other stuff.
Right. Yeah, he had an itinerary. Yeah, because he gets sucked into Ferengi Basic Cable.
Daytime TV. Awful.
He's watching one about there's this cop landlord who's... Oh my gosh. And then...
absolutely
a soap opera
romance.
called Pog and Dar, Cop Landlords. I'm reading some of the summary here. Mariner's hanging out with a Ferengi buddy of hers who, kind of correctly
met in season 1.
Oh, we did. Yes. You know what? I forgot about that.
I think it was season 1.
Yeah. That's what wasn't that the big fake out where?
Yeah, because it was. I think it was season 1 because it was when they lost the Klingon and then the Klingon ambassador and then I'm pretty sure season 1.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was one of the very first episodes. As a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, the Klingon ambassador one was
Federation.
Yes, it was like episode 2 or 3. But yeah, Mariner is she's trying to talk through or doesn't want to talk through whatever existential crisis she's dealing with her Ferengi friend. We're seeing more shenanigans with Tendi and with Rutherford trying to pretend to be a married couple. But one of the greatest bits was the guest cast of this was the wonderful Chase Masterson as Lita and Match Grodenchik as Rom, both of whom I've met because of being on the cruise and being at Vegas. Delightful people. Chase Masterson is so great with the fans. She is someone who absolutely embraces doing shows and interacting with fans. She's really great about it.
Like a regular on Star Trek Online. She loves doing stuff for.
Yeah, she's a permanent fixture on the Star Trek cruise, just like Denise Crosby is as well. Like on every year, and just loves being there. So kind and so gracious. And but yeah, so the two of them are participating in
cutthroat negotiations.
Yeah, aggressive negotiations without the lightsaber with the captain and. That's not the other admiral. That's her husband, right? Because her husband's in it. Yeah,
this is Admiral Sensors, whose name is his name is escaping me, but it's that guy.
Oh, Admiral Sensors is now the name of the episode. Good work, Peter. And so that was just it was. I don't. You know what? I think I'm going to stick with We Will Lurk over there. That sounds better.
Okay.
Yeah, he was fantastic. No, I love it. So this was a great, and then at the end they kind of out Ferengi the Ferengi, which is kind of a cliche
which is what Rom was looking for, which was perfect.
Yeah. So that was awesome, but it's very monumental that at the end of this, Ferenginar, assuming that there's not some other shenanigan, is now actually a Federation planet.
Yeah, at the end of the episode, they at least have provisional status, which is really, really quite cool.
And I love the fake out. So they get all the way down to creating a thing. They say, yep, you can have everything you want as long as you bring one planet to the Federation. And they're like, oh my God, that's going to be easy. They're like, no. You need to read the fine print because we picked the planet. And Lita goes, it's Kronos, the Klingon homeworld? There's no way. Oh, well, you guys signed it. That's what you want. That's what you want. That's what you got to do. So, yeah, you're right. Then they back out and Rom says, we needed to make sure that you guys weren't suckers, that you were going to fall for our bonus. So just bring me the regular papers. I'll sign. So he does sign. And so they're in. I love it. So, yeah. So this was fun. And it's funny. This was episode 6 and I've seen through episode 8. And so, yeah, it'll be we have it because we're an episode behind doing this. So episode 7 has already been out. Episode 8 will be coming out this week. So I'll be getting probably that screener probably pretty soon, but I'm assuming that something really gargantuan happens in episode 9 and 10 that probably has to do with the ongoing plot line, with the mystery ship. So I will, of course, while I will be aware of it, I will, of course, keep my mouth shut and not be a tattletale because that is not the way things work. But yeah, great segment. And I mean, it's kind of hard for me to even say, oh God, this has been the best season of Lower Decks so far because it just continue to
pretty solid.
Yeah, it's all been pretty. Yeah, and I think this has been the season. I think particularly since they all got promoted, I think they've done a lot more really powerful character building, and I've really dug it.
I think at least for me, it's been good with the character development and the introduction to Lynn. So I think that's added, but like the rest of the seasons are great too. So. Yeah. That's just the thing about Lower Decks. It just started strong. We've been having fun with it, and good stuff all around. So okay, all right. Well, moving right along. This is so easy when it's just the two of us. I don't have to trouble myself with intros and outros and all this different stuff. But we can move right into segment 2, which is the conclusion of our touch and go analysis of the 4th season of Star Trek: The Next Generation. The final 6 episodes pack a punch. Some very, very heavy, serious episodes in this segment. So I'll jump right in with probably one of the heaviest of all time, and I can't even remember if this ended up in our challenge bracket for episode 100. But maybe it didn't.
And when we come back and do the bracket again, and I had mentioned this in our group chat not that long ago, it'll be with either episode 150 or episode 200 by the time we get there. If this one wasn't in there, it definitely will be, because I want to roll with all new different episodes to go kind of head to head. And then perhaps we'll have a final challenge to see who from bracket 1 can defeat bracket 2. Could be a special episode. Nice, long, detailed analysis. But anyway, episode 21 of the season is The Drumhead, directed by Jonathan Frakes. This was when he was a newer director, still kind of getting his feet. Written by the spectacular Jerry Taylor, co-creator of Star Trek Voyager. So you got some serious talent going into this episode. From April of 1991, A Witch Hunt. Ensues. It's funny, we're going to talk about a witch hunt when we get to Battlestar as well. A witch hunt ensues for a suspected Romulan spy aboard the Enterprise. Guest star is Gene Simmons, who is in a show from the 1970s called Dark Shadows, which was later a film by Tim Burton, is Rear Admiral Nora Satie. Wow. What can you say about this episode?
Is intense.
This is, I would say, bit for bit, top 10 in all of Star Trek franchise, I would say. I think it would be hard to quantify more powerful performances, not only from Patrick Stewart, from other
also
members.
Michael Dorn.
Yeah, other members of the cast. Michael Dorn, who really finds himself in the middle, at first being a believer in what's going on, and then finally realizing kind of the folly of his ways once the evil is exposed. And from Frank Whalen, who plays the young enlisted crewman, great performance. And then Gene Simmons herself, a powerhouse of an actress, someone very convinced of her own righteousness, which is terrifying in any situation. That would be this, hey, there's a situation, because what happens is, we have a situation where we have a Klingon exchange officer who's complicit with Romulans. He smuggles something off of the ship. And this, during the course of this, are people obviously not knowing what's going early on. This special advisor, this retired admiral, who, by the way, exposed the conspiracy in the episode Conspiracy with the little bluegills at the end of season 1. It's a nice little throw in that I dug. They bring her out of retirement, and she doesn't even really solve anything, because there was
more of it.
Yeah. It came from, in addition to this Klingon guy being a spy, there was also an accident in engineering, which turns out was a complete fluke, not related. But once, Nora Satie's got blood in the water, she's looking for trouble absolutely everywhere, and looking for trouble generally they find it, and all of a sudden everybody's a suspect. So powerful stuff. I really loved in the last act when, Picard gets up and gives his speech about that. And at the end of it, she's retorting, and this admiral, this other guy that she called to witness it, just goes, man, fuck this. He gets up and leaves. He's like, I'm not even listening to this stuff. That was extremely powerful. Yeah. I don't even know really what to say. This is one of the absolute finest episodes of almost anything I've ever seen. Just top shelf. I would put it nose to nose with, The Measure of Man, which was voted by our panel on that episode 100 as being the finest episode of all time. So your thoughts, Peter? I
mean, I don't know how much more I can say. It's just a really good episode. The final ending is one of my favorites in Star Trek. Because I'm always a fan of having scenes where you have characters reflect on what just happened, and then it ends kind of in a contemplative way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for this one, you have Worf go like, how could I be deceived by her? And then you have Picard giving the line of like, not all villains are walking around with twirling mustaches and all of this stuff. Sometimes they're hidden. And that's something I really like, that particular line.
Yeah.
And how that's delivered and what it's actually talking about. There's just a lot of really good stuff in here. Picard's speech is one of the finest that he does. I don't know if it's my most favorite, because I really like his one in the First Duty, but this one's really, really good as well.
Top 5 speeches without a doubt. Top 3.
It's
probably
just a fantastic episode.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my God. Good stuff. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Next one is yours.
Episode 22, Half a Life, directed by Les Landau, story by Ted Roberts and Peter Allen Fields, aired in May of 91. Teleplay, also by Peter Allen
Oh
Fields.
yeah, it came over the next page. Sorry.
Yeah. Lwaxana Troy finally finds love, but discovers her man must undergo ritualistic suicide.
Damn it!
Oh no. Guest star David Ogden Stiers as Dr. Timison.
Oh, and Peter, you have familiarity with the quintessential sitcom MASH? I assume you do.
A little bit. I've seen
David Ogden Stiers was part of the replacement cast transplant that happened in the later half of that series. He came on as as a replacement foil to Alan Alda's character, who is Hawkeye, and David Ogden Stiers played a very, very serious other surgeon, so they used to foil to each other. So that's his.
He also plays in. For anyone who's seen Stargate Atlantis, he plays a replicator villain in the later seasons.
Oh, there you go. Gotcha.
So he switches. He's a bad guy in that one.
Yeah, he's good. He has range. Yes. I once heard, talk about random memories. I once heard, and I don't remember the context, it was a morning show interview with him that was based in the Eastern time zone. So it was, 8, 9 o'clock, where he got up at like 4 o'clock in the morning to do this interview. And you could tell he was super groggy, but what a professional. She's like, you could tell that he had just rolled out of bed to pick up the phone to do this deal. So weird things that pop up in my head, but that was one of them. But yeah, what an exceptional episode doing what Star Trek does best, taking something that is held apart from the Federation and from Starfleet by the Prime Directive. Here you have a society that has very serious beliefs, and the way that he outlines it, the way that it works with this resolution, I believe they call it, is that at some point in the society, the society of this very insular planet, this very xenophobic planet that we know very little about, but we're called upon to do what the Federation does best. Their son is dying. They have the scientist who needs to test out his, rocket ship formula that he can shoot it into a sun and stabilize it. Ultimately, unfortunately, that doesn't work out. But the deal with this planet is that they decided a long time ago that in order to help out people who reach a certain age with infirmity and become a burden on their families, and that just did not fly on this planet, that everyone would, much like Logan's Run, but at twice the age, would submit to a ritualistic suicide and kind of take themselves off the board, so they wouldn't necessarily be a burden to their friends and family. And Lwaxana, who falls in love with David Ogden Stiers' character, just can't fathom it, and just can't fathom why she can't get him to repent. And the thing that really, and for a while, this guy says, well, I want asylum. I want to live my life. And what kind of turns the clock on him is an appearance by his daughter, a very early appearance by Michelle Forbes, Ensign Ro. This was her first and only other Star Trek role that I'm aware of, that happened about 6-9 months before we met Ensign Ro in the beginning of season 5 of TNG. Very powerful turn. Thought it was absolutely fantastic episode. This was, again, episode. This was during the period of time when I was, and again, most of the 4th season, I was not watching the show at all. I've mentioned again that I became a dyed-in-the-wool, watching it every week viewer of TNG in season 5. So I did not see this until, it was in, I think, the fall of 1992 when when TNG, the old syndication rules is something had to hit 100 episodes and then it could be sold into syndication. So it was then, and because the 100th episode, which we're going to talk about in a minute, aired at the end of 1991, later in 92, it was then able to go into syndication. So I probably saw it at some point after that. So yeah, rock solid episode, and one of those great, you can see it from both sides kind of mysteries, but with the Prime Directive being, non-interference, very difficult for us to, it puts you in the position where Starfleet is not allowed to judge. They can't judge the strictures of another society, but powerful stuff.
This is one of the examples where I like to point out how older Star Trek likes to hold up the two sides of a very tough issue, and then doesn't. You definitely have characters who want to do a certain way or say it or do different things, but then they end up having to do something they don't want to do.
Right.
And then it just it ends kind of bittersweetly.
Yeah.
And so like, this is a pretty solid episode for that, regardless of how you think it ends. It really ends really well. I would say.
Most definitely. Good stuff. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, totally crushing it. Now, okay. So beyond that, we're moving into the introduction of a new species in the next episode. It's all yours. A very important one. Yes.
Yeah. So episode 23, The Host, directed by Marvin V. Rush, written by Michael Horvat, aired May 11th of 91. Dr. Crusher falls in love with Odan, a peace negotiator, only to discover that he is a Trill symbiont. When his original host dies, he is implanted into Riker temporarily and awkwardly to finish his negotiations.
Super awkwardly. Yeah, so this is a great case of, hey, here's a mysterious race that we later find out we've known about for a long time. But we don't know, but they also can't use the transporter, which ends up coming up in this episode because, again, Crusher falls in love over the span of 10 days with this negotiator dude. He's a Trill. Nobody knows that the Trills are a joint species at this point, which we know is not the case because of Cisco and Curzon Dax, which took place prior to this.
Well before this. Yeah.
Well before this, exactly, because Cisco and Curzon Dax met and became friends when Cisco was just out of Starfleet Academy, which would have happened at least 10 or 15 years prior to that, probably almost closer to 20 years prior to this. But regardless, you know what? It's a big galaxy and not everybody is going to know everything about everything. Because yeah, for all we know, the two mind symbiote part thing could have been a closely guarded secret. And this was the incident that exposed it. Who knows? I don't know. Cause we didn't really see the Trill, with the exception of Discovery, and that would be the season 3, season 4 portion. We didn't see them going backwards. They didn't show up in Enterprise or anything like that I can think of.
Nope.
So, the Trill, so this could be, maybe this was the thing that blew the lid off the Trill conspiracy. You never know. So yeah, you get this Odan. He's going to negotiate this tense situation. Turns out the guy who was his Odan's father was actually the same Trill symbiote inside of a different host. Yeah, so I feel like maybe nobody knew about it at all until now. But then, it's even just 2 years later, Cisco is one of the ones who knows, but maybe, he had to keep the whole Trill thing on the down low. Curzon was like, hey, I'm 2 people, but, you just got to kind of keep it to yourself. I got a slug living in me, but it's just not fit for consumption. I don't know. It's very speculative. I'm very curious about how or why.
It's since it's the first introduction of a species, there's a lot of stuff that gets retconned later. Like there's things with the Cardassians we first see them. There's things with Ferengi when we first see them that are just dropped by the wayside. So for me, when it's a first experience of a species and then things get established later, it's fine.
You kind of loosen it because Peter and I are both very much canonistas. We love canon stuff. But yeah, I guess you got if there's some place to give some slack, this would clearly be an occasion.
Species introduction, I usually give a little bit of slack. When you're coming in on a well-established one, that's one where I'll give you shit.
Yeah, no, precisely. No, I totally understand where you're coming from. So, all right. So, so Odan, the host is critically injured. The symbiote has to be removed, and it can be implanted into a human host, but it's a little iffy because it gets put into Riker, and he's not feeling so great, but he still has feelings for Dr. Crusher, and she resists. But eventually they hook up, but I guess he wasn't feeling that sick that he couldn't still get down. But at the end of it, he finishes the negotiations. The symbiote has to come out, and then the symbiote ends up, the new host arrives, and it's a female. Very common in Trill parlance. But then we find out that, Crusher, she's just, she may be very hip, she may be very with things, but she's not bisexual. That's okay. It's totally okay that she's not bisexual. Not a big deal. Whatever. It doesn't really push the envelope in the way that, and actually in our very next episode, we're tackling the first half of season 4 of Deep Space Nine, which I was doing the flow document for today. That one has the rejoin segment in it where you see Jadzia, Dax, and a female host reassociating. And that was such a big fervor in the mid-90s. People were like, oh my God, 2 women kissing, which was one of the first and one of the more prominent occasions of that happening in television of any kind at that point. Not to put things too far ahead. That didn't happen in this episode, but I don't know how I would feel in a situation like that. If it was me and, I was in love with the female and you took the slug out of her because she died and then you put it into a dude, I also am not bisexual. I think that that's it. Yeah, I think that that's just not at my level. We know that there are many, many people in the world today that it wouldn't be a big issue at all, and I'm totally down with that. So I'm cool with the way Bev handled it. She wasn't rude. She wasn't nasty. She just was saying, hey, this is just not for me. What else can you do, right?
Yeah.
So,
not much.
I think she handled it okay. Yeah, again, a decent introduction to a great concept in Star Trek that we'll see, which is, infinite diversity and infinite combinations. So awesome. Any other thoughts about the episode?
Not really. It's a good one. So.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, 24 was that? Oh yeah, this next one. No, this is you.
Well, I did 2 in a row. So
you did. How could you? It's so what the hell difference does it make? 24 is The Mind's Eye. David Livingston directs. Story by Ken Schaefer and Renee Echevarria. He's a regular. Also, he did the teleplay. May of 91. The plot line: Romulans brainwash Geordi to carry out a covert mission.
In a nutshell,
What is it about chief engineers or engineers in general in Starfleet that they are just rife to get into some bad shit? Let's do a quick rundown of what's happened to the red/gold shirts in the history of Star Trek. Trip Tucker dies. Scotty dies, comes back to life, also gets taken. Yeah. Also gets, God bless, also gets taken over by Jack the Ripper. Kind of a bummer. You get Geordi, gets stranded on a Romulan planet this episode. Miles O'Brien, don't even get me started. B'Elanna Torres. B'Elanna Torres kind of got by okay, and so on and so forth. But this was just can anything good ever happen to Geordi? So he's on his way to Risa for a conference in a shuttle pod, which just blows my mind.
A Type 15 shuttle pod.
So
flying a Pinto.
A one-seater. It's basically a smart car. You know what I mean? It's about the same, because they've shown the shuttle pod as being a two-seater, so at least you could have a buddy along. I don't know how you're taking a pee break if you need to. I'm sure there's some methodology. But anyway, so he's taking this weird trip to Risa in this subwarp shuttle pod where it just seems like, and this is pointed out like the Nitpicker's Guide to Star Trek, it just really seems like the Enterprise could have zipped over there if it was a 3 to 6 hour trip in a shuttle pod, that they could have been there in like 15 minutes in the Enterprise, but then we wouldn't have had a story. So Romulans kidnap him, and this is when we get our first off-screen voice appearance of Denise Crosby as Sela, even though it was played by a stand-in actress. She's standing in the shadows. Very clearly her voice. It'll be a couple episodes later that we do finally meet her. Sorry to spoil the cliffhanger from 30 years ago. But this is all based around there's a Klingon colony that's in revolt, and so a Klingon ambassador is there. And what's kind of cool is the colony that's in revolt is Krios, which shows up next season, because they're the ones that also have the perfect mate, which is Famke Johnson, one of my favorite episodes. Jean Grey and Professor X meet for the first time. Her and Picard, they're almost romance in that episode. But that's the same species. But what this really is, Ambassador Kell is that dude's name. He is a Romulan sympathizer. He's working for the Duras, which we'll find out in another couple of episodes, are in bed with the Romulans, trying to drive a wedge between the Klingon-Romulan alliance. And because they can brainwash Geordi and then beam signals into his visor and control his actions, they're going to use him to off this Klingon governor and then get him to say, well, I did it for, Starfleet did it for Krios. We're all for them or whatever. And through the miracle of our, data and, being able to track things down, they're able to stop it at the last moment. And obviously, quit him from killing this ambassador. But I particularly found a lot of relevance and strength in that last scene where he's talking through his brainwashed memories with Troy. And he's finally starting to accept that he was brainwashed, even though it's so hard for him to do so. And Troy has this great speech, it may take some time, a long time, but you will start to get your memories back. That's a great line. However, right in the next episode, he's totally fine. That happens in TV.
It's just the way it's part of the episodic nature of TNG.
Exactly. But, I mean, while this one is kind of filled with tropes, it's, again, a great, some great performances by LeVar Burton.
Really good
episode. LeVar Burton, of course, Brent Spiner is, Data, and Worf doing his, Klingon sparring, because at this point he is still dishonored. So the Klingon ambassador tries to get under his skin at some point. So yeah, it was another great episode.
Yep,
without a doubt.
Yep, don't have a whole lot to add there.
I know, man. Like I said, it's a pack of winners. So all right, you jump into the next one while I take a snort here.
Yeah, episode 25, In Theory, directed by Patrick Stewart, written by Joe Menosky and Ronald D. Moore.
Oh, winners.
June 1st, 1991. Ooh. Data participates in a romantic relationship with a fellow crew member. I think I watched this episode for the first time when I was going my watch through for this.
Really? Okay. Wow. So you have not even seen every episode of Star Trek.
I've been watching through, there's been apparently there were a few that I skipped.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, and I don't mean to throw shade, because it's really difficult when you look at, hey, great example. If I go up to even just these summaries of the Lower Decks episodes, it gives you an episode count. We just tipped over 905 episodes of Star Trek. So we're on our way to 1,000 episodes of Star Trek that exist. So I think it's really, really difficult for anybody to have seen them all. So I totally get it.
I'm pretty sure I've seen them all at this point, but this was just one of those that I don't think I've seen this one all the way through.
Right.
I read plenty about it in the encyclopedia, but then watching it is a totally different experience.
Yeah, without a doubt. So our guest her name is Michelle Scarabelli, and the two roles that I can think of her having done is that she was one of the main characters in the television adaptation of the early 90s sci-fi film Alien Nation, if you've ever seen it or heard of it. It was kind of a flash in the pan. Obviously, didn't make a big dent. And then she very briefly played Ma Kent, or Martha Kent, in the most recent Superman television series, the Superman and Lois, which was on the CW. And it may or may not be over now. But her main role in that was to be in the first episode, die, and then die, so that Superman and Lois and their kids moved on to the Kent farm. So that was all she had going for her. But again, somebody who's been in TV stuff forever and ever a day. So what did you think? This was just kind of like, Data's figuring out, how to sweet talk a girl or whatever, and you never really figure out if they get down or not. It's funny because when he describes to the Borg Queen when the last time is he had relations, the time frame he gives kind of makes it sound like he got with Tasha, but he did not sleep with this woman. So guess it wasn't that serious. I don't know.
It was, yeah.
There was a couple of good giggles in this one. I think this was the first directorial credit that Patrick Stewart ever had, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Mm-hmm. But he was kind of following in Frakes' footsteps. But I don't know that it's something that he's continued to really do. He's continued to act where Frakes kind of went in the other direction. So, this one's okay. It gives you a couple of good Data moments. I've met plenty of women like this woman before. They're like, I love an unemotional man. It's probably mostly because I have daddy issues. Sorry. I know that's throwing a big net, but it's something that I personally bumped into. But, men are like that too. So it's hard to pin it down to just being women. But yeah, a woman looking for something that's not there in a relationship with Data. And at the end of it, he just said, oh, well, are we broken up now? Yes. Well, I'll delete the appropriate files. Then he goes back to petting his cat. Data's good. Man, don't you wish it was that easy for any of us to recover from a breakup? You know what I'm saying? But yeah,
the weirdest scene for me was the lovers quarrel bit. That was just bizarre.
You're not my mother. Are we not programmed for a lover's quarrel now? So yeah, I thought it was okay. It was passable. But not an episode I would say.
It wasn't my favorite. It was one of those it was like, I can see why I didn't watch this one all the way through the first time. It was like,
and then you have a B plot with Nebula with Anomaly. This was the one where you had the engineer who fell halfway through the floor. So you could be glad that you see her halfway through, and you're glad you're seeing the top half, not the bottom half. because it'd be pretty gross. And yeah, Picard has to save the day. Maybe he had to save the day because he was directing the episode, but he again shows up in that stupid smart car out front. Starfleet smart car. That could be another name for this episode. But I'm still really set on the one we have. I think that's really good. I'll think about it between now and the time I edit. But anyway, all right, moving on. Episode 100 of the series. Call it syndication time. Woo! One single balloon falls down. But episode 26 of the season is Redemption Part 1. Mm-hmm. Director is Cliff Bowl. Writer is the superb, my guy, Ron D. Moore. From June of 1991. You know what? I hate this stupid description. It jumps right to the end. Worf leaves the Enterprise to fight on behalf of Gowron in the Klingon Civil War. Okay, just give us a little panache in this summary. Kind of sucks.
Yeah, it takes them a second to get over there.
Exactly. So this is the second big season-ending cliffhanger. The stakes are certainly nothing like the best of both worlds, the Klingon two-parter, which is obviously what kicked off this season. But it's very important for Worf. So he is, at the beginning of the episode, Picard's giving his introductory log. He's saying, well, we're going to the Klingon homeworld. I'm going to finish my job as arbiter of succession because Gowron's going to take over. And, he steps to, goes to Worf, and Worf's practicing his calisthenics, and Picard basically says, hey, now I think it's time for you to step up and talk to Gowron and get your honor back because this whole thing totally sucks. And he's like, well, nah, I just don't think so. And then Gowron shows up and challenges Worf, and Worf's like, whoa. Here's the real deal. No, it wasn't me. It was Duras's father. And even Gowron's like, well, it might kind of be too much trouble to be this thing and that thing, but you took the rap for it, so be a Klingon. It's like, you be my guy. And I think that sucks. I mean, I think that gives overall credence to the fact, and this is really touched on really at the end of Deep Space Nine with Worf, and then again with Gowron, ironically enough, that the Klingon High Council sucks. I mean, it's as corrupt as any other governmental body has the capacity to be, because you get filled with a bunch of people that are satisfying their own self-interest, lining their pockets, whatever it is. Or in the case of Klingon, is, racking up glory or wins or kills or whatever it is that they're after. And so they think they can behave with impunity and kind of get away with what the hell ever, because it's, it's like banks that are too big to fail. And that's kind of what this is. But at the end of it, Worf, because he kind of holds sway over his brother Kern, the fantastic Tony Todd, who we see again, because Worf is the elder brother, they bring ships and force to the banner of Gowron versus Duras. We meet the Duras sisters in this, Lursa and Bator. And we meet his Weasley little son, Toral, who he has another appearance at DS9, but is recast for that. Yeah. But boy, they found a great little Weasley little guy to basically be like a pipsqueak Klingon. I will show you honor. That guy sucked. But yeah, this was great. This was one of the finer segments that we've seen in Worf's kind of emotional struggle that, started in The Sins of the Father. Well, really in some parts back in season 2 with the Emissary with Kalar. And then moving into Reunion earlier this season where Kalar is killed by Duras. Duras gets himself killed, and we meet Worf's son, and then into this. So yeah, his loyalties are divided down the middle, and he has to follow his heart and be with his people. And leaves the Enterprise, and they give him a nice standing send off. I always love it how we talked earlier in the season that Gates McFadden, Dr. Crusher, was pregnant for the large bulk of season 4, and this was as they're all saying their goodbyes. You see her from the back, like mid back up, and then as they pan back over, you see her just from the neck up, practically. So can't see the big Pregger's belly. I thought that, I don't know, it always makes me chuckle. So
working around,
yeah. So what'd you think? Was this a good send off? Did you feel, even though the cliffhanger had some stakes, it wasn't really like, oh my god, what's going to happen now? Or what do you think?
I think that this episode it was enough of a cliffhanger that it would have made people be like, oh no.
Yeah, right.
Especially with the reveal at the end.
Yeah.
So because like Worf leaving, like that's oh no, what's going on?
Yeah, right.
This is one of the first other than him wearing the uniform with Kalar, this is one of the first times that like Worf has worn the Klingon uniform and left the Enterprise.
Right.
He does that later, especially in Deep Space Nine. They do that semi-regularly.
Yeah, because he just like, well, I'm going to go do a Klingon thing, so let me just change my clothes. Yeah. And it becomes definitely a little bit more interchangeable. So
yeah, but like there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of Klingon politics, which is, I always enjoy the inner workings of the Klingon Empire and how the Klingons work. Gowron's one of my favorite characters. I know that he kind of gets sleazeballified a bit later, but I like.
Right. At this time, he was kind of the best of what was around. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
of your Klingon options, this was the one that worked.
And then, of course, at the very end, we get our reveal of Sela.
Yes, exactly.
Her face, which is just it's just a really cool thing, and then spoilers, you hear like why that's a thing later, but it's just really interesting how Sela comes back with Denise Crosby.
Yeah.
And, well, actually, this isn't coming back. Well, I guess it's back because we did hear her voice in, as we said.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But this is the first time you see who it is.
Right.
Still think it's a missed opportunity not having her in Nemesis, but there it is.
Right. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. No, that would have been really powerful. I totally agree. We do also get in this episode the classic, if you want to quit Starfleet, you just have to throw your badge at somebody. And then if you want to come back, you just have to say, I want to come back. And it's like, okay. I mean, real militaries don't work like that at all, which is proof that this is a TV show. Yeah, no, if you're in the military and you're like, I want to quit, they're like, and we want to send you to the stockade. Enjoy. Your brother in the Army, I don't think if he would say, well, I'm all set, I'm going to go now, they would have locked his ass up.
Yeah, that's generally how it works.
Yeah, it just doesn't work that way. So, all right. So that is the end of Season 4. Let's go through and again, I know you're not totally prepared, but your knowledge game is quite strong. Looking over the season in general, not specifically just from this segment. Let's grab a favorite and a least favorite.
So we're doing this segment, or
we'll do. You know what? We'll do both. I think that's how we've done it.
That's how we've been doing it.
Before. Yeah. So let's grab a favorite and least favorite from this segment, and then expand it onto the season.
Yeah. 1 second. I need to get the list of the episodes in front of me just so that I can see the whole season. If it'll let me. Yeah. 1 second. But my favorite one out of this season would have to be probably the Drumhead. I'm tempted to go to Redemption Part 1, but because it's not the full thing, it does have Gowron, but it's not the full story. So I think that for me, it's going to be Drumhead for my favorite episode. Least favorite episode is probably going to be In Theory, just because I just didn't really like a lot of it.
That's an easy one without a doubt. Duffer and Duffer. Okay, looking at the season as a whole, I think we can find a worse episode, but as far as a better episode, it's tough because that first quarter of the season was just a powerhouse, just boom, 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 with strong episodes, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right,
a lot of really good episodes in here.
Yeah.
I think if I had to pick a worst one, it might be. I know we super picked on it when it was a thing, but The Loss. I just really hated that episode.
It was. I mean, that versus what the hell was the other one with the Night Terrors? I think is. I feel like. Is my worst.
It's one of those two.
Yeah, but as far as a best episode. I mean, you're looking between Family and Brothers and Reunion.
There's like so many good
all of
episodes in here.
The heavy episodes that focus on family and those kind of relationships make it really, really tough. So, all right. Well, cool. Well, we'll wrap on that. So that is season 4 of Star Trek: The Next Generation. In our next segment, Deep Space Nine. Season 4, the beginning of interesting. We're ending with the strong Worf episode, and DS9 season 4 starts with Worf joining that cast, and just a crazy, because that entire season is about Klingon stuff. So, good, very fitting. So, Well, cool. Friends, as always, thank you for joining us. Peter, where do people find you out there?
You can find me around the interwebs at Petrus Aquinas. You can also find me on ELH's YouTube or Twitch channel, where I will be taking over running a Tuesday night Star Trek Adventures game.
Ooh, look at you moving up in the world. I love it. And of course, you will see all of us at Grand Rapids Comic-Con, upcoming in November 3rd through 5th here in Grand Rapids with the USS Grand Petoskey. That is the chapter of the International Star Trek Fan Club that is run by my wife, April, and myself. Peter is our chief engineer and game master. If you are a Trekker within the sound of my voice, if you Google either Region 13 or USS Grand Petoskey, you can get in touch with us. I run Region 13, which encompasses Michigan and Eastern Canada. We're always on the grow. I would love to have you on board for the ride. You can also find me out on Twitter/X at the C3. I'm also trying to stay a little bit more consistent over on Instagram, where I am C3 Carpenter. Just go ahead and spell it out. And on Threads as well. I keep saying that because my partner Todd keeps talking it up, but I haven't quite gotten there yet. So I'll keep trying. But at any rate, friends, as always, thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring and to keep on trekking.
Peace and long life.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.